A man in a Vancouver, Washington driveway reads the same number off his phone again. It's the quote for one car. It's higher than the monthly payment on the car it's supposed to cover. The car's a Dodge Challenger Hellcat. He's had the same insurer for 9 years, and this morning they told him they're done. Not a higher rate, not a warning, just done. This is how the most American muscle car ever built got priced off the road by the people who insure it. Start with the reason everybody already knows: Hellcats get stolen. And the rate isn't a little high, it's high enough that the insurance industry built a whole separate mental category for it. The 2020 through 2022 Charger Hellcat posted a theft claim rate around 60 times the average car on the road. 60 times. Read that again, because it's easy to skim past a number that big. The next car down the list, a regular Charger with the Hemi V8, sits at a fraction of that. There's the Hellcat, and then there's everything else. The reason it gets taken so often has almost nothing to do with the owner and everything to do with the car. A Hellcat carries a supercharged 6.2-liter V8 making 707 horsepower in stock form. That's a car that outruns almost anything a police department can put behind it, which means a thief who gets it rolling has already won. And getting it rolling takes about as long as it takes to read this sentence. There's no smashed window, no hot wiring in the old sense. A crew pulls up, plugs a handheld programmer into the diagnostic port under the dash, pairs a blank key fob to the car, and drives off in under 30 seconds. The factory security never gets broken. The crew just asks the car, in its own language, to hand over a new key. By the time the owner's phone buzzes, the car's already 3 exits down the highway. And these aren't joyrides. The crews taking Hellcats are running a supply chain. The same surveillance clips show up city after city. A stolen SUV as a lookout, a second car as a blocker, 2 minutes of work, and the Hellcat's gone into a network that already has a buyer for every piece of it. The car that left the dealership as a single $90,000 object becomes inventory before sunrise. And it happens at a scale that turned heads even inside the insurers. In cities like Detroit and Memphis, Hellcats and their Charger cousins climb to the top of local theft reports, sometimes vanishing faster than dealers could restock them. Whole forums filled with the same story. Owners who lost the car inside a year, some of them hit twice. When a single model starts generating that volume of identical claims, it stops looking like bad luck and starts looking like a pattern an insurer can chart on a graph. And the cars that chase them mostly don't anymore. After a string of pursuits that ended in wrecks and dead bystanders, department after department wrote policies telling officers to back off. A Hellcat is faster than almost anything they're driving. So the thief isn't just quick, he's running from people who've been ordered to let him go. Which means, once a Hellcat's moving, the odds it ever comes back start dropping towards zero. So far, this is the story every other video tells. Hellcats are fast and easy to steal, so the premium goes up. True enough, but it doesn't explain the letter in that Vancouver driveway. Plenty of cars get stolen and still get insured every single day. A high theft rate raises your premium. It doesn't make a company refuse your money. To understand why an insurer would rather lose the customer than write the policy, you have to look at what happens after a Hellcat disappears. When a normal car gets stolen, there's a decent chance it comes back. Someone takes it for a weekend, dumps it, police recover it, the insurer pays for a busted ignition and some cleaning. The loss is real, but it's partial. A Hellcat doesn't work that way. When one of these disappears into the network, what comes back is almost never drivable. The engine's gone, the transmission's gone, the seats and the screens and the wheels are already listed online, and the frame shows up in pieces, if it shows up at all. The supercharged engine alone is the single most valuable part, and it's the first thing off the car. So every Hellcat theft tends toward a total loss, not a $4,000 ignition repair, a $70,000 payout. Recovery almost never helps because the parts don't carry the car's identity. An engine or a transmission, once it's off the Hellcat, there's no license plate to run, no easy way to prove where it came from. They flow into salvage rebuilds and shipping containers headed overseas, and they're almost impossible to claw back. For the insurer, that means the comprehensive payout it writes on a stolen Hellcat is gone for good. There's no salvage value waiting at the end of it to soften the loss. Run that against everything else on the road and the number gets brutal. Measured by relative theft losses, the Charger Hellcat came back at a figure of around $12,000. The next worst Dodge, the ordinary Charger Hemi, sat near $2,500. That's not a car that costs more to insure. That's a car generating 5 times the loss of the next worst thing on a list it already sits on top of. Think about what an insurer actually sells. They're taking a bet that most years most customers won't cost them much, and the premium is the price of that bet. With a Hellcat, the bet's already lost before it's placed. The owners who do find coverage feel the same math from the other side. Quotes of $500 a month on the car alone aren't rare. Owners in higher theft states report annual bills north of $4,000 on a clean record, more than the car loses in value in a year. At that point, the premium stops being insurance and starts being a second car payment for a car you already owned. Then there's the engine itself before anybody steals anything. A lot of major carriers draw a hard line around 500 horsepower. Past that, a car stops being a normal risk and starts being a category they'd rather not write at any price. The base Hellcat clears that line by 207 horsepower straight off the showroom floor. The Red Eye pushes near 800, and a huge share of these owners don't leave it stock. A pulley swap and a tune, a weekend's work, and a few $1,000s can shove a Hellcat past 1,000 horsepower. And this is the part that traps the owner. Most standard policies won't cover a modified car, and some void the entire policy the first time it touches a drag strip. So the insurer's looking at a car that's over their power ceiling, that's probably been modified past a number they can't even verify, that gets stolen 60 times more than average. And that becomes a total loss when it goes. Stack those together and you don't have a risky customer. You have a guaranteed payout wearing a license plate. And theft's only half the exposure. Even when nobody steals it, a Hellcat is brutally expensive to fix. The supercharged engine, the upgraded brakes and cooling, the wide tires, and the unique body panels all cost more than a normal Charger's. And a hard crash at the speeds these cars invite rarely ends in a small repair. The same horsepower that makes it a target makes every fender bender pricier to settle. There's one more trap built into a car that's appreciating. Owners want their policy to pay what the car's now worth, not what they paid. Agreed value coverage for the higher number. But insuring a car for more than the market says it's worth is an open invitation to fraud, and the industry knows it. A car that's easy to steal and worth more insured than parked is exactly the problem insurers have spent a century learning to avoid, so they avoid it. And the damage doesn't always stay with the one car. Some owners have watched the Hellcat poison their entire relationship with an insurer, rates creeping up across every policy, and a non-renewal notice that arrives for the whole household, not just the muscle car. To a big carrier, a customer with a Hellcat in the garage looks like a file flagged for a phone call nobody wants to make. Sometimes the cleanest fix from the company's side is to let the whole account walk. Once the math looks like that, refusing the customer is just arithmetic. There's nothing personal in it. They ran the number and the number said no, which is where the story should end, except the timing is where it gets strange. Right as insurers were closing the door, Dodge did something that should have killed the car off entirely. Instead, it made everything worse. In 2023, Dodge announced it was ending the Hellcat. The emissions rules and the regulatory pressure on a supercharged 6.2-liter V8 had finally caught up. The engine that built the legend was too thirsty and too loud for what was coming. The replacement was supposed to be a cleaner, electrified future. The factory that built the most stolen, least insurable car in America turned the lights off on it, And Dodge didn't go out with a whimper. The final years brought a run of special last call editions and a factory monster called the Demon 170, a Hellcat-based drag car making 1,025 horsepower on the right fuel, quick enough that the drag strip governing body effectively banned it from competition without a roll cage. The company spent the engine's last breath building the most powerful and least insurable versions it ever made. Then it shut the line down. You'd expect prices to crater here. A discontinued car, an uninsurable car, a car half the industry won't touch, that should be a fire sale. It didn't happen. Used Hellcat prices climbed. Low mileage examples that stickered in the 70s started trading well above that, and the wildest variants turned into instant collector pieces. The rarest factory cars, the Demons especially, crossed into six figures at auction. Several times what a normal sedan their age would bring. Scarcity did what scarcity always does. The cars the financial system was actively rejecting got more valuable the moment the factory stopped making it. What replaced it tells you where the road's heading. The new Charger arrived as an electric car with piped-in noise, built for the rules the Hellcat couldn't pass. Enthusiasts split down the middle, and a lot of them did the math and went hunting for a used supercharged car instead, which only pushed Hellcat values higher. The car the system rejected became the car the market wanted more of. So now you've got a car worth more every month that almost no normal insurer will cover. That gap got filled by specialty carriers, the kind that insure classic cars and weekend collectibles. They'll write a Hellcat, but read the conditions. The car has to live in a locked garage. It can't be your daily driver. You need a separate everyday car for every driver in the house. There's usually a mileage cap, and you can't drive it to work. Look at what that actually means. In a lot of cases, the only way to insure a Hellcat now is to promise you'll barely drive it. The supercharged engine, the 707 horsepower, the whole reason the car exists, all of it ends up parked under a cover in a garage as the price of being insurable at all. That leaves owners in a strange bind. The car's worth more than they paid, which feels like a win, but selling means handing the same insurance headache to the next buyer, and a lot of them can't get an affordable policy to drive it in the meantime. So thousands of these cars now sit in garages, appreciating assets their owners are half afraid to start. A 707 horsepower machine built to terrorize a quarter mile, reduced to a thing you look at on Saturday and pay to keep parked. There was never a rule. There was never a law. The insurance industry just made the terms of owning one so narrow that the car stopped being something you drive and became something you store. And that same machinery is now turning toward every fast car coming after it. This is bigger than one Dodge. For a century, the thing that decided which cars lived and died was supposed to be the customer, what people wanted, what they'd line up to buy. The Hellcat shows a different force doing the deciding. An insurer doesn't need a recall or an act of Congress to pull a car off the road. It just has to decide the risk isn't worth writing and the car becomes something most people can't legally drive. And it's already moving past the Hellcat. High horsepower performance cars across the board are getting harder and pricier to cover. Some of the new electric monsters making 1,000 horsepower from the factory are walking into the same wall. Too fast and too expensive to repair for the math to work. Detroit and its rivals keep building cars that chase a bigger number, and the companies that have to pay when those numbers meet a guardrail are increasingly deciding they'd rather not be in the room. The Hellcat's the clearest case because it was the loudest. It won't be the last. So here's the real question. The insurance companies didn't break any rules. They looked at a car that gets stolen 60 times more than average. That turns into a total loss when it goes, and that makes more horsepower than they'll write at any price. And they did the rational thing. They said no. Maybe that's just a business reacting to honest numbers. Or maybe a handful of underwriters did something no politician and no regulator ever managed. They decided which cars Americans are actually allowed to drive, and nobody got a vote. So which is it? Did the Hellcat earn the door slammed in its face, or did the people who insure our cars become the ones who get to kill them?